The air inside the courtroom was thick with anticipation. Families, reporters, and uniformed officers all held their breath as Judge Malcolm Hargrove leaned forward, his voice cold and deliberate. "In the case of the state versus Captain Maya Rodriguez," he began, "this court finds the defendant guilty of first-degree murder." A wave of silence crashed over the room, as if the very walls had absorbed the shock. In the defendant's chair, Maya Rodriguez, a decorated war veteran, 3-time survivor of Afghanistan, and recipient of the Purple Heart, sat perfectly still. The only sign of life was the faint tremble in her hands. Her face, composed and unreadable, betrayed none of the fear and disbelief swirling beneath the surface. "The brutal nature of this crime," the judge continued, "leaves this court with no alternative. Captain Rodriguez, you are hereby sentenced to death by lethal injection." A collective gasp rippled through the gallery. Some leaned forward in disbelief. Others sat frozen, unsure whether they had misheard. Sam Winters, Maya's appointed public defender, shot to his feet. "Your Honor." But Maya raised one hand, stopping him. "It's okay, Sam," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't do this, but no one believes me anyway." The bailiff stepped forward. Maya turned her head, her gaze locking onto the back of the room, onto the one face that had never doubted her. Sitting beside an old man in a wheelchair was a large German shepherd. His ears perked, his amber eyes locked on her. His name was Atlas. "Take care of him, Dad," Maya called out. "Don't let them put him down." The dog whined, straining, against the leash held firmly by Maya's father, retired Sergeant Major Victor Rodriguez. The old soldier's face remained stoic, his posture straight, but 2 silent tears made their way down his weathered cheeks. To the jury, it had seemed like an open and shut case. Colonel James Westfield had been found murdered in his home. The murder weapon bore Maya's fingerprints. Her blood had been discovered at the scene. Security footage showed her car near the crime scene. The prosecution wove a convincing narrative. A decorated soldier, denied benefits and pushed too far, had snapped. But what no one had heard in that courtroom, the part that had been ruled too prejudicial, was the history Maya had with the victim. How Colonel Westfield had ignored multiple sexual assault allegations in their unit. How he had threatened to destroy Maya's military record when she tried to speak up. And now, she was being led away in handcuffs. Atlas let out a low, mournful howl, a sound so guttural and raw it sent a shiver through everyone in the courtroom. Even the bailiffs paused. Victor leaned over and stroked the dog's head. "I know, boy," he murmured. "I don't believe it either." What no one knew, not the judge, not the jury, not even Maya herself, was that Atlas had already begun his own mission. With senses sharper than any man's and loyalty deeper than any vow, this dog had seen what no one else could. And he wasn't about to let the truth stay buried. Not this time. The news spread like wildfire. Decorated war hero sentenced to death. Every headline echoed the same narrative. Captain Maya Rodriguez, once hailed for her bravery in Afghanistan, now branded a killer. And yet, inside the sterile walls of her prison cell, Maya sat alone, quietly grappling with the weight of a crime she swore she didn't commit. She could still hear the judge's voice, still feel the chill of the handcuffs. But the part that haunted her most wasn't the death sentence. It was the look in her father's eyes. The pain, the disbelief, the helplessness, and the sound of Atlas, her loyal service dog, howling as the doors closed behind her. Outside the prison, the world moved on. But not everyone accepted the verdict. Victor Rodriguez, Maya's father and a retired sergeant major, had never been one to question orders, until now. He knew his daughter, knew her heart, her discipline, her pain. She had survived hell overseas, lost a leg to a roadside bomb, and came home with more scars on the inside than the outside. And yet, through it all, she had never lost her sense of duty or her moral compass. Maya was many things, stubborn, proud, battle-worn, but she was not a murderer. Still, the case against her had been damning. Colonel James Westfield, her former commanding officer, was found stabbed to death in his home. The murder weapon, a tactical knife issued to Maya during her last deployment, was discovered on the scene, wiped clean but still carrying partial fingerprints. Hers. There was more. Blood matching Maya's type was found on the living room floor. Investigators claimed it had likely come from a cut she sustained during the struggle, but Maya didn't have a fresh wound when she was arrested. That detail was brushed off in court. Then there was the security footage. A grainy camera across the street from Westfield's home captured a black SUV, matching the make and model of Maya's vehicle idling nearby the morning of the murder. The timestamp aligned too perfectly with the prosecution's timeline. They argued that Maya, driven by rage over being denied medical leave and facing the loss of her benefits, had snapped. That she had gone to confront Westfield and killed him in cold blood. The jury never saw what lay beneath that surface. They never heard about the formal complaints Maya had filed, documents that mysteriously disappeared before the trial. They weren't told how Colonel Westfield had threatened her during a closed-door meeting, warning her that if she didn't stop stirring up trouble, she'd regret it. They didn't know how she came home from war only to fight a different kind of battle, one against the very institution she had served with honor. All of it was ruled inadmissible. Too prejudicial. The court, it seemed, wasn't interested in why Maya might have been targeted, only whether the evidence pointed to her. And according to the prosecutors, it did. Her own defense was shackled. Sam Winters, fresh out of law school, believed in Maya's innocence, but he was outmatched by seasoned military prosecutors who painted her as unstable, violent, broken. A soldier cracked by war, lashing out in revenge. But Sam had seen her up close. He'd seen the way Maya carried herself, not with arrogance, but with resolve. The way she spoke about the men and women she had lost. The way she talked to Atlas, as if he were the only one who truly understood. Sam had represented other veterans before, but there was something different about Maya, something no one wanted to look closely at. And then there was Atlas. To the untrained eye, he was just a service dog. But those who knew Maya understood. Atlas wasn't just a companion, he was a lifeline. He had been by her side since her return stateside, trained to sense her panic attacks before she even realized they were coming, to apply pressure when phantom pain overwhelmed her, to guide her when her prosthetic leg gave out. Now he was grieving, depressed, refusing food. He spent his days lying beside Victor's chair, ears alert, eyes distant. But that spark, that fierce intelligence behind his amber gaze, it hadn't dulled. Not entirely. Victor began to notice it in the small things. Atlas would sit near Maya's, boxed up belongings, sniffing around them as if searching for something. He growled when the local news ran segments about her case. He barked when certain names were mentioned, especially Westfield's, and another, Major Philip Garrison. Chankersva didn't know what to make of it at first, but as days passed, he realized something unsettling. The same dog who had once pulled Maya out of flashbacks, who had guided her through the chaos of civilian life, now seemed agitated, as if he were trying to tell them something. And then came the night Victor caught him staring, unblinking, at the door. It had been 3 weeks since the verdict. Victor's modest home had turned into a war room. Newspaper clippings covered the dining table. Crime scene photos lined the walls. Sam stopped by each evening, going over transcripts, witness lists, trying to find a crack in the prosecution's airtight case. Victor, usually a man of action, found himself poring over legal briefs, learning about evidence chains and appeal protocols. The system was slow, methodical, and incredibly unforgiving. "We need new evidence," Sam said for the 100th time. Something the appeals court can't ignore. But all they had was circumstantial doubts, suspicious behavior, gut feelings, and a dog that couldn't talk. Or could he? That night, Atlas suddenly rose from his place near the window. His ears twitched, his posture shifted. A moment later, the doorbell rang. Victor wheeled himself to the front, Atlas now at full alert beside him, muscles tense. When the door opened, a woman stood there. Early 30s. Military posture, haunted eyes. "Sergeant Major Rodriguez?" she asked. "I'm Lieutenant Diane Foster. I served under your daughter in Kandahar." Victor blinked, stunned. "Yes?" She stepped inside. Her voice dropped. "I don't think Maya killed Colonel Westfield," she said. Lieutenant Diane Foster stood just inside Victor's modest living room, her eyes darting toward Atlas, who was slowly approaching her, nose twitching, ears perked. The dog stopped a few inches away, sniffed her extended hand, and after a pause, that seemed to stretch forever, let out a quiet grunt and stepped aside. "He remembers me," Foster said with a breath of relief. "I wasn't sure he would." Victor nodded slowly, studying her. "You said you don't think Maya killed Westfield. Why come forward now?" Foster hesitated. "Because I was warned not to." Sam Winters leaned forward from his place at the table, papers spread before him. Warned by whom? Major Philip Garrison. He took over Westfield's post after his death. She rubbed her arms nervously, the soldier's calm now visibly cracking. "Before the trial, I was ready to testify. I had information that could have changed everything. But I was told that if I opened my mouth, my career would be over. They'd paint me as unstable, dishonorably discharge me. You know the drill." Victor clenched his jaw. "And you listened?" "I wanted to speak," Foster said firmly. "I wanted to tell the truth, but I was alone and afraid. And yes, I was weak, but I'm here now because I couldn't live with the guilt." She opened her bag and pulled out a small USB drive. "Maya gave me this the day before Westfield was killed. Told me to keep it safe." "What's on it?" Sam asked, already reaching for his laptop. "Files," she said. "Emails, spreadsheets, financial records tied to some kind of contract fraud. Westfield was skimming funds meant for veterans' rehabilitation, and Garrison was in on it." Victor's breath caught. Maya found out? She was fighting for her own benefits when she stumbled onto discrepancies. She started asking questions. She confronted Westfield directly. The night he was murdered, Maya wasn't the only one who visited him. Sam paused mid-keystroke. "Who else?" "I was on duty that night, monitoring secure comms. I saw activity on Westfield's access logs. Garrison went to his house, an hour after Maya left." Sam's eyes narrowed. "You're absolutely sure?" Foster nodded. "But when I went back to check the logs 2 days later, they were gone. Erased. Just like the surveillance footage from the block where Westfield lived." Sam finished loading the files from the USB. His screen filled with documents, ledgers, email threads, procurement reports. It was overwhelming. "This is motive," Sam said, flipping through them. "But it's not proof that Maya didn't do it. We need something physical, tangible." At that moment, Atlas stood abruptly and trotted toward a corner of the room where Maya's belongings had been packed into storage boxes. He nosed one of the duffel bags, pawing at the zipper. "What is it, boy?" Victor wheeled over, unzipping it. Inside, he found Maya's old running gear, her athletic wear, her prosthetic blade, and a small dust-covered GPS fitness tracker. "When was the last time Maya used this?" Sam asked. "The day Westfield was killed," Victor said slowly. "She always went running in the mornings." Sam hooked the tracker into his laptop. A few moments later, a map appeared on the screen, tracing a 5-mile loop on the opposite side of town. "She wasn't anywhere near Westfield's neighborhood that morning," Sam breathed. "This contradicts the prosecution's timeline," Victor added. "They claim she went straight to his house that morning." "And her shoes," Victor said suddenly, pulling them from the bag. "They're clean. If she'd been at Westfield's, there would have been gravel or debris. His whole driveway was loose stone." "This could help," Sam said, "but it's still all circumstantial." Before anyone could say more, Atlas suddenly stood between Sam and the door, barking sharply. "What's gotten into him?" Sam asked, startled. Victor's eyes widened. "He wants to show us something." The dog's body language was unmistakable. focused, determined, not agitated. Maya had always said Atlas could read a situation better than most humans. Victor quickly grabbed his coat. "We follow him." Sam hesitated. "Where? It's nearly midnight." Victor looked down at Atlas, who was now scratching at the door. "Wherever he's leading us." They leashed the dog and stepped into the cool night air. Atlas wasted no time, nose to the ground, pulling them forward with purpose. The streets were quiet, the sky clouded, the world asleep, except for a dog with a mission. "Where's he going?" Sam muttered as they turned down unfamiliar roads. Victor didn't answer. He just kept rolling beside Atlas. It wasn't until they neared the perimeter of the local military base that realization dawned. "No," Sam whispered. "This doesn't make any sense. He can't possibly be tracking anything. Not after 3 weeks." But Atlas didn't slow. He led them along a service road to a small, unguarded chain-link gate. It was ajar. Atlas slipped through, and the men followed. Victor's breath fogged in the night as they moved deeper into a storage area behind one of the maintenance sheds. The dog stopped suddenly at a dumpster and sat staring. "You've got to be kidding," Sam said, shining his phone's flashlight inside. The stench hit them first. Construction waste, drywall, old carpet. Nothing here but... Wait. Sam reached down, his gloved hand brushing against something stiff and plastic. He pulled out a bag. Inside was a military uniform jacket, blood-stained. The name tag read, "Garrison." Victor's voice was hoarse. "That's it. That's what we needed." Sam quickly snapped photos, careful not to disturb the bag further. "This could be what ties Garrison to the scene." "But we can't take it," Victor reminded him. "Chain of custody would be broken. It would be inadmissible. Then we get someone who can collect it the right way." Before they could retreat, a sound made Atlas bristle. Voices. 2 men approaching from the side of the shed. "Garrison wants everything cleared out by tomorrow," one voice said. "Inspector General's office is sniffing around." "What? About the Rodriguez appeal?" "It won't matter," the second man replied. "The judge is in Garrison's pocket. Who's going to believe a one-legged vet with PTSD over a decorated major?" Victor's hands clenched around the wheels of his chair. They waited in silence until the voices faded. "We need someone outside the chain of command," Victor said grimly. "Someone who can't be bought." "I know just the person," Sam replied. The following morning, Victor's home became the meeting point for a new alliance. A circle of unlikely truth-seekers bound by loyalty, justice, and an increasingly undeniable sense that the system had failed Maya Rodriguez. Special Agent Camila Ortiz, a former JAG officer turned CID investigator, arrived quietly just after sunrise. She wore no official insignia and drove an unmarked sedan. To the outside world, she was just another early visitor to a veteran's home. To those inside, she was their last hope. "I hope you know what you're asking of me," Ortiz said, as she stepped through the doorway. "If anyone finds out I'm even here, my pension goes up in smoke." Victor met her eyes. "Then I hope the truth is worth more than your pension." She smiled faintly. "I always liked your style, Vic." Sam brought Ortiz up to speed. Foster's late-night visit, the USB drive, Atlas's discovery at the base. At first, Ortiz's expression remained carefully neutral. But when she heard the words blood-stained uniform and Garrison's name on the tag, her demeanor shifted. "Let me get this straight," she said, turning to Victor. "You're telling me your daughter's service dog tracked down potential murder evidence in a dumpster on a military base." Victor didn't flinch. "That's exactly what I'm telling you." Ortiz looked at Atlas, who was sitting calmly beside the couch, head tilted, eyes fixed on her. "I served with Maya years ago," she said quietly. "She told me once that Atlas was smarter than most of the officers she worked with. Guess she wasn't kidding." Still, Ortiz was cautious. "That evidence, if not collected properly, won't stand in court. But if Garrison's name is on it, and it tests positive for Westfield's blood, we might be able to build a case around it." Sam opened his laptop and pulled up the files from the USB. Here's what we found. It's a goldmine of financial misconduct. Dozens of fraudulent contracts, kickbacks, emails between Garrison and Westfield. But nothing directly proves Maya's innocence. Not yet. Ortiz scanned the files quickly, eyes narrowing. This is enough for a full-scale investigation into fraud. But if we want to stop Maya's execution, we need more. Something immediate. Something concrete. As if on cue, Atlas stood abruptly and moved to Maya's duffel bag again, pawing at it with sudden urgency. Victor frowned. He's doing it again. Sam opened the bag, checking the same contents they had seen the night before. The shoes, the tracker, her running blade. We already searched this. Victor reached in and felt along the bottom. Something was off. A subtle shift in weight, a barely noticeable seam. Wait, he said, fingers probing. There's something sewn into the lining. He pulled out a tiny memory card, no larger than a fingernail. Maya always made backups, Victor muttered. She didn't trust clouds. Ortiz inserted the card into her laptop. The files were encrypted. This'll take hours to crack, she said. Time we don't have. I know someone, Foster offered. A comms tech from my unit. She's quiet, loyal, and off the radar. Ortiz nodded. Make the call. But Atlas wasn't done. He now paced between the front door and the duffel bag, tail high, ears forward. He wants to go somewhere, Victor said. Ortiz raised an eyebrow. What is he? Part bloodhound? Victor answered without humor. Part miracle. Despite Ortiz's skepticism, she had seen enough to know better than to ignore him. Okay, she said. You and Sam go. Follow the dog. Foster and I will work on the encryption. But be careful. If Garrison knows we're closing in, he'll sigh. Get desperate. Victor and Sam leashed Atlas again. The dog took off like he knew exactly where to go. This time, he didn't lead them to the dumpsters. He led them to the base's administrative sector. The buildings loomed in shadow, empty at this early hour. Most lights were off. But Atlas didn't head to the front. He circled around the back of a personnel records office, where a lone figure stood outside smoking a cigarette. Sergeant Willis? Victor called softly. The woman turned, startled, then visibly relaxed. Sergeant Major Rodriguez, I was hoping you'd come. Sam blinked. You were expecting us? Willis nodded. Lieutenant Foster called, said you might need access to something sensitive. Victor wheeled closer. You know what you're risking? She crushed the cigarette underfoot. My brother came back from Afghanistan broken. The system turned its back on him. I won't let it do the same to Maya. Inside, she led them to a secure computer. Her keycard granted access to restricted files. What exactly are you looking for? She asked. Anything Garrison buried, Sam said. Especially about the murder weapon or suppressed evidence, Willis typed furiously. Okay, here. This is the original forensic report. She clicked open the file and leaned back. According to this, she said, pointing to the screen, the knife had 2 blood types, Colonel Westfield's and an unidentified secondary sample. Sam leaned in. That was never mentioned in court. They cleaned the report, Willis confirmed. The copy submitted at trial listed only Westfield's blood and Maya's prints. They suppressed evidence that someone else was at the scene, Victor said. There's more, Willis said, clicking through. After Westfield died, Garrison filed a request to have all of the colonel's personal effects transferred. Directly to him, claimed it was part of an ongoing investigation. That's not protocol, Sam said. Those effects should have gone to next of kin. Exactly, Willis said grimly. I've copied everything to a drive. Just then, Atlas stiffened. Someone's coming, Victor warned. Willis quickly logged off, handed Sam the flash drive, and guided them to a side exit. They disappeared into the shadows just as voices echoed down the corridor. Back at Victor's home, Ortiz had made progress. The memory card had been decrypted. It contained a single audio file, dated the day before Westfield's death. Ortiz clicked play. Maya's voice came through, clear but tense. I know about the contract fraud. Colonel, you and Garrison have been skimming rehab funds for years. You have no proof, Westfield replied. I have the records, and I'm not alone. If anything happens to me, the Inspector General gets everything. Are you threatening me? No, sir. I'm giving you a chance. Resign. Return the money. Do the right thing. The file ended there. Ortiz looked up, her expression hardening. She gave him a chance. Sam entered, flash drive in hand. We've got more, he said. Original forensics show a second blood type, and Garrison took Westfield's personal effects, illegally. Ortiz took the drive, plugging it in. This is it, she said. We've got motive. We've got suppressed evidence, and once that jacket tests positive for Westfield's blood, we've got physical proof. Victor leaned forward, eyes searching hers. Is it enough to stop her execution? Ortiz met his gaze. I don't know. Then the lights went out. Atlas bolted to the window, barking like a siren. Outside, figures moved through the shadows, approaching the house. Sam whispered, Garrison's making his move. Victor clenched his fists. We need to act. Now. The house plunged into darkness as the power cut out, and for a heartbeat, everything stood still. Then came the low thrum of footsteps outside. Through the front window, Victor and Sam could just make out 3 figures creeping toward the house. Armed, masked, methodical. They're here, Sam whispered. Ortiz moved immediately, her training taking over. She pulled her firearm, signaled for everyone to stay down, and took a position near the hallway. Foster, call base security. Use my name. Tell them it's an emergency. Special Agent Ortiz requesting immediate armed response. Before Foster could reach for her phone, a crash echoed from the back of the house. Glass shattered. A door swung open violently. Atlas leapt into motion, sprinting toward the kitchen with a ferocious growl. Moments later came the unmistakable sound of a struggle. Furniture skidding. A man cursing in pain. Paws scrabbling across linoleum. Then silence. And then the heavy thump of a man's body being dragged. Atlas returned a second later, teeth locked onto the sleeve of a bleeding man in a military police uniform. He dropped the intruder unceremoniously in the center of the room and stood over him, snarling. Ortiz rushed forward and trained her gun on the man. Identify yourself. Corporal Jenkins, military police. The man muttered, his face contorted. In pain from the bite wound on his arm. On whose orders? Ortiz demanded. Major Garrison's. The room froze. Ortiz gave a grim smile. Well, Corporal Jenkins, I hope you're ready to testify, because you just broke into a federal agent's location, attempted to tamper with evidence, and implicated your commanding officer in a conspiracy. Within an hour, Ortiz's CID team had secured the house. Jenkins was taken into custody. The black SUV that had been stalking Foster fled the scene, but now base security had orders to stop and identify every unmarked vehicle near Victor's home. Still, the victory was hollow. Sam stood in the living room with his phone trembling, in his hand. They moved up her execution date. Victor's head whipped around. What? Sam's voice was hollow. The governor signed an emergency order this morning. 10 days. They're calling it a special circumstances case. That's impossible, Victor said. The appeals don't matter, Sam interrupted. Garrison's pulling strings. He's trying to finish this before we can expose him. Ortiz cursed under her breath. We're close, too close. He's panicking. We need to arrest him now, Victor snapped. Ortiz shook her head. We're not ready. If we act too soon, and he walks on a technicality, Maya's case gets buried. Atlas, who had been resting quietly, suddenly stirred. His ears perked, his head lifted, his body tense. He moved again toward Maya's duffel bag. We already checked it, Sam said. There's nothing left in there. Victor wheeled over. Let's trust him. He emptied the bag completely, then felt along the inner seams. His fingers found a tiny slit. Inside was a second, even smaller memory card. She always backed things up twice, he whispered. Ortiz loaded it into her laptop. Encrypted again. Foster stepped forward. I'll call my tech, she can handle this. But Atlas was already pacing again, toward the door, then back to the bag, then the door again. Victor looked at him closely. He wants to go. Ortiz hesitated. We can't just keep following a dog into classified areas. We're on thin ice already. But he's been right every time, Victor insisted. What if there's something else? Something even bigger? She sighed. Fine, Victor, Sam, go with him. Foster and I will stay and crack the encryption, but be careful. Garrison's watching everything. Atlas led them once again into the night. This time, he didn't head for the storage yards or the dumpsters. Headed straight for the base's personnel records building. It was heavily restricted, but Atlas didn't go to the front. He led them around the side, behind the fence, past the dumpsters, and toward a rear maintenance entrance. And there, smoking a cigarette, was Sergeant Willis. She looked up, unsurprised. You again? You expected us? Sam asked. Willis nodded. Foster told me you might come back, said you'd need files Garrison had locked away. She opened the door and handed them her access card. You've got 20 minutes. Inside, the terminal was already active. Willis typed in her credentials and stepped aside. Start with everything related to the murder weapon, Victor said. Sam searched quickly. Here, this is the original forensic analysis. He opened the file. 2 blood types, Westfield's and an unknown. They deleted this in the court version. Willis clicked deeper. And here's something else. Garrison classified all files related to Maya's personnel record last week, including her psych evaluations, commendations, deployment, history. Why would he do that? Victor asked. Willis scowled. To make her look unstable, to remove anything that might generate sympathy. Sam copied everything to a new flash drive. Just then, Atlas stiffened. Someone's coming, Victor whispered. Willis quickly logged out. Back exit, now. They slipped out into the night. Atlas led them around security patrols as if he had memorized their routes. They made it home without incident. Ortiz and Foster were waiting. We cracked the card, Ortiz said, her voice low. It's a recording. Foster added, Maya's last meeting with Westfield. The night before he was killed. Ortiz clicked play. I know about the contract fraud, Colonel. I know you and Garrison have been stealing from the rehab funds. You have no proof. I have records. I'm not alone. And if anything happens to me, the evidence goes to the Inspector General. You threatening me, Captain? No. I'm giving you a chance. Resign. Give it back. The recording ended. Sam handed Ortiz the drive from Willis. We've got more. Garrison suppressed the forensics, the blood evidence, and took Westfield's belongings without authorization. Ortiz stared at the screen. This is enough. Sam nodded. To stop the execution. Ortiz was about to answer when the house went dark again. Everyone froze. Figures moved across the front lawn, silhouettes in the moonlight. They're coming, Foster whispered. Ortiz pulled her sidearm. Get down! Victor watched Atlas. The dog was at the back door, tail stiff, body alert. I have an idea, Victor said suddenly. Sam, give me the flash drive and the card. What are you thinking? Victor began attaching the evidence pouch to Atlas's service vest. Maya trained him for emergencies. For message delivery. He knows the base better than we do. He can reach General Winters. You're sending the dog into a war zone, Sam said. Victor looked him dead in the eye. He's already fought one. Ortiz considered for half a beat, then nodded. We'll draw their fire. You send the dog. Victor knelt beside Atlas. Find General Winters, boy. Just like Maya taught you. Go. Atlas stood still for 1 second, taking in the moment, then vanished into the night. Through the front window, flashlights and laser dots began sweeping the walls. Victor whispered, He's our only chance now. Atlas moved through the night like a shadow with purpose. The pouch on his vest pressed tightly to his side. carrying the last hope Maya Rodriguez had. Patrols combed the base, unaware that justice padded silently past them on four legs. Lights, voices, distant gunshots from Victor's home. He ignored them all. By dawn, he reached his destination, the home of General Clayton Winters. The base commander, a stoic man known for discretion and duty, sat in his study reviewing documents when a sound made him look up. A soft scratch at the window, and then Atlas. General Winters rose slowly, confusion spreading across his face. Atlas? The dog pushed through the half-open window, stood before him, and sat staring. On his vest, a pouch, a note, a flash drive. Winters opened it all. 30 minutes later, CID agents were on the move. A full team was dispatched to Victor's home, where Garrison's men had just begun tearing the place apart. They didn't get far. Surrounded by military police, Garrison surrendered. In that moment, justice began to turn. Back inside, Victor held Atlas close as General Winters approached. "Sergeant, Major Rodriguez," he said solemnly. "On behalf of the United States Army, I apologize for this injustice. Maya's execution has been stayed, effective immediately." Victor wept openly, one hand tangled in Atlas's fur. "You saved her," he whispered. "You saved my girl." 3 weeks later, the gates of the women's correctional facility swung open. Maya Rodriguez stepped into the sunlight, blinking against the glare. She wore the same prison uniform she'd been given months earlier, but her eyes were clear, her posture proud. Across the parking lot, Victor waited in his wheelchair. Atlas sat beside him, tail thumping wildly as he caught sight of her. "Maya!" Victor called, voice choked with emotion. The moment she stepped forward, Atlas broke free. She dropped to her knees, arms wide. "Come here, boy." The German shepherd launched into her embrace, whining, licking, pawing, nuzzling, overcome. "I missed you too," she whispered. "I heard everything you did. You never gave up on me." Victor wheeled closer, tears glistening. "Neither did I." Nearby, Ortiz and Sam stood watching, both quiet, both smiling. "The investigation's still ongoing," Ortiz said. "But Garrison confessed. 12 other officers are under review, millions in stolen funds being traced." "And Foster?" Maya asked. "Running the reform program," Sam replied. "With funding, real oversight, she's good at it." They stood together for a long while. Later, Maya looked at Atlas, who hadn't left her side. "I think I'm done with the Army, Dad, but I'm not done fighting." 6 months later, the Maya Rodriguez Veterans Advocacy Center opened its doors. Funded through a government settlement and public donations, the center offered legal aid, therapy, and service dog training to struggling veterans. On opening day, Maya stood before the crowd. At her side, Atlas, now gray around the muzzle but still proud. "When I was sentenced to death for a crime I didn't commit," Maya said, "I lost my faith in the system I'd sworn to protect. But I didn't lose hope, because a dog, never stopped believing in me." She reached down and scratched Atlas's ear. "Sometimes justice doesn't wear a robe or carry a badge. Sometimes it walks on 4 legs and barks in the face of lies." The crowd laughed gently, but their applause was heartfelt. As Maya stepped down from the podium, a young soldier approached with a German shepherd pup. "This one's our first graduate," the soldier said proudly. Maya knelt beside the puppy. "What's his name?" "We're calling him Justice." Atlas wagged once in approval, nuzzling the puppy gently. And somewhere deep in the hearts of those who heard this story, something shifted. Because sometimes the truth doesn't come with fanfare. Sometimes it comes with fur and loyalty and the courage to believe in someone when the world won't. And the miracle is simply not giving up.